Hello, hello. You know what time it is? Woo! Get into it! Get into it! Yes! We are back. Oh, yeah. We are back with Storytime with Chris. Hi. And no, I don't own the music that you're listening to in the background. All right. As I always say, you don't have to watch these videos when they go live. You're more than welcome to watch them in your spare time, in between time, downtime, nap time, or any other time. As the White Queen of Lewis Carroll's Alice's Through the Looking Glass and What Alice Found There, which is my favorite out of the two books that he wrote specifically for those titles. The White Queen, she said, it's jam. She said, it's jam yesterday or any other day, but never jam today. So in the meantime, between time, sometime, nap time, any other time, you are more than welcome to watch these videos at your leisure. As I always try to say, please like, share, and subscribe with your friends. I don't do this for profit. Storytime with Chris is a passion project that I do to get people excited about the magic of reading. Because reading is not just fundamental, it is essential, it is important. It helps us learn different languages, different cultures, different perspectives, different aspects of life, elevates our diction and language, and helps us expand our world and learn about things that we may not easily be privy to. So, like, share, subscribe. There is a link to the YouTube channel on my Facebook as well as my Instagram, which on Instagram we are reading the first book in a series of unfortunate events by Lemony Snicket. So, please do check that out. As well as next Monday, so a week from today, I will be, Hallows Eve and Halloween Day, I will be reading The Halloween Tree by Ray Bradbury. It's something that I typically try to read. It's not that long of a book. Pretty much could finish it in a whole night. But I like to break it up into two parts because, one, I don't want it to be a super long video, nor do I want it to be rushed. So, look for that on Monday evening for Halloween. And yes, I'll be passing out candy. So if you are in Yellow Springs and around South High Street, please come by and pick up some candy for the kids. All right. Hi, Rachel. Thank you for watching. I appreciate you. Thank you for watching, sweetie. I miss seeing you at karaoke. I wish they would bring back karaoke at the Gulch. That was fun. I don't know if they ever will, or if there's another spot in town that does karaoke, but I miss it. All right, we are back with the Book of 3. Also, kids, what I always tell people at my job, because I do sing at Ellie's, whenever I have time for my guests, specifically for my guests, or if I'm requested to sing for an anniversary or a birthday, I always try to tell people, everybody can sing. You just have to find your voice part. So sing your heart out. Not everybody's going to sing high like Mariah Carey, and not everybody's going to sing low like Pavarotti or Barry White. Everybody has to find their part. So everybody has to find their voice part. Just wanted to say that because I was just thinking about that earlier today. All right. Chapter 12. The Wolves. For a time during the day, Tarn believed they had at last outdistanced the Cauldron-born, but late that afternoon the warriors reappeared from behind a distant fringe of trees. Against the westering sun, the long shadows of the horsemen reached across the hill slope toward the flatlands, where the small troop struggled onward. "We must stand against them sooner or later," Tarn said, wiping his forehead. "Let it be now. There can be no victory over the Cauldron-born, but with luck, we can hold them off a little while. If Ilodwe and Gurgi can escape, there's still a chance." Gurgi, draped over Melangar's saddle, immediately set up a great outcry.
"No, no, faithful Gurgi stays with mighty Lord who spare his poor tender head. Happy, grateful Gurgi will fight too with slashings and gashings."
We appreciate your sentiments, said Fluter, but with that leg of yours you're hardly up to slashing and gashing, or anything at all.
I'm not going to run either, Ilonwe put in. I'm tired of running and having my face scratched and my robe torn, all on account of those stupid warriors.
She jumped lightly from the saddle and snatched a bow and a handful of arrows from Taran's pack. Ilonwe, stop! Taran cried. They are deathless men. They cannot be killed. Although encumbered by the long sword hanging from her shoulder, Ilonwe ran faster than Taran. By the time he caught up with her, she had climbed a hillock and was stringing the bow. The cauldron boar galloped across the plain. The sun glinted on their drawn swords. Taran seized the girl by the waist and tried to pull her away. He received a sharp kick in the shins.
Must you always interfere with everything?
Ilonwe asked indignantly. Before Taran could reach for her again, she held an arrow toward the sun and murmured a strange phrase. She knocked the arrow and loosed it in the direction of the cauldron boar. The shaft arched upward and almost disappeared against the bright rays. Open-mouthed, Taran watched while the shaft began its descent. As the arrow plummeted to earth, long, silvery streamers sprang from its feathers. In an instant, a huge spiderweb glittered in the air and drifted slowly toward the horseman. Fluter, who had run up just then, stopped in amazement. "Great Beelan!" he exclaimed. "What's that? It looks like decorations for a feast." The web slowly settled over the cauldron board, but the pallid warriors paid it no heed. They spurred their mounts onward. The strands of the web broke and melted away. Ilonwe clapped a hand to her mouth.
It didn't work, she cried, almost in tears. The way Akren does it, she makes it into a big sticky rope. Oh, it's all gone wrong. I tried to listen behind the door when she was practicing, but I've missed something important.
She stamped her foot and turned away. "Take her from here," Taran called to the bard. He unsheathed his sword and faced the cauldron board. Within moments they would be upon him, but even as he braced for their onslaught, he saw the horsemen falter. The cauldron board reined up suddenly, then without a gesture, turned their horses and rode silently back toward the hills. "It worked! It worked after all!" cried the astonished Fluter. Ilonwe shook her head.
No, she said with discouragement. Something turned them away, but I'm afraid it wasn't my spell.
She unstrung the bow and picked up the arrow she had dropped. "I think I know what it was," Taran said. "They are returning to Arorn. Gwydion told me they could not stay long from Maneuven. Their power must have been waning ever since we left Spiral Castle, and they reached the limit of their strength right here."
Oh, I hope they don't have enough to get back to Maneuven,
Ilonwe said.
I hope they fall to pieces or shrivel up like bats.
"I doubt they will," Taran said, watching the horsemen slowly disappear over the ridge. "They must know how long they can stay, and how far they can go and still return to their master." He gave Ilonwe an admiring glance. "It doesn't matter. They're gone. And that was one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. Gwydion had a mesh of grass that burst into flame, but I've never met anyone else who could make a web like that." Ilonwe looked at him in surprise. Her cheeks blushed brighter than the sunset.
Why, Taran of Caer-Dolben, she said, I think that's the first polite thing you've said to me.
Then suddenly Ilonwe tossed her head and sniffed.
Of course, I should have known. It was the spider web. You were more interested in that. You didn't care whether I was in danger.
She strode haughtily back to Gurgi and Melangar. "But that's not true," Taran called. I was... By then Ilonwe was out of earshot. Crestfallen, Taran followed her. "I can't make sense of that girl," he said to the bard. "Can you?" "Never mind," Fluta said. "We aren't really expected to." That night they continued to take turns at standing guard. Though much of their fear had lifted since the cauldron board had vanished, Taran was the last watch before dawn, and he awoke well before Ilonwe's had ended. "You had better sleep," Taran told her. "I'll finish the watch for you."
I'm perfectly able to do my share,
said Ilonwe, who had not stopped being irritated at him since the afternoon. Taran knew better than to insist. He picked up his bow and quiver of arrows, stood near the dark trunk of an oak, and looked out across the moon-silvered meadow. Nearby, Fluter snored heartily. Excuse me. Gurgi, whose leg had shown no improvement, stirred restlessly and whimpered in his sleep. "You know," Taran began with embarrassed hesitation, "that spider web.
I don't want to hear any more about it, retorted Eilonwy.
No, what I meant was, I really was worried about you. But the web surprised me so much I forgot to mention it. It was courageous of you to stand up against the Cauldron Warriors. I just wanted to tell you that.
You took long enough to getting around to it,
said Eilonwy, a tone of satisfaction in her voice.
But I imagine assistant pigkeepers tend to be slower than what you might expect. It probably comes from that kind of work they do. Don't misunderstand. I think it's awfully important. Only it's the sort of thing you don't often need to be quick about.
At first, Tarn went on, I thought I would be able to reach Cardathel by myself. I see now that I wouldn't have got even this far without help. It is a good destiny that brings me such brave companions.
There, you've done it again,
Eilonwy cried so heatedly that Fluter choked on one of his snores.
That's all you care about, someone to help you carry spears and swords and what all. It could be anybody, and you'd be just as pleased. Tarn of Caradolban, I'm not speaking to you any more.
At home, Tarn said to himself. Eilonwy had already pulled a cloak over her head and was feigning sleep. Nothing ever happened. Nothing ever happens. But somehow I can never seem to make it come out right. With a sigh, he held his bow ready and began his turn at guard. Daylight was coming. In the morning, Tarn saw Gurgi's legs was much worse, and he left the campsite to search the woods for healing plants. Glad that Cole had taught him the properties of herbs, he made a poultice and set it on Gurgi's wound. A poultice, children, is basically like... It's a wrapping that is made with herbs and healing ointments and salves and lotions that you can wrap around somebody's arm so that whatever the damaged area is, it can stay in place for one, but it also can administer the healing properties of whatever herbs or medicines or salves that you may have placed upon it. It's a nice healing wrap, basically. It's like a healing Band-Aid. There you go. That's the best way to put it. Fluter, meanwhile, had begun drawing new maps with his dagger. The Cauldron Warriors explained the bard had forced the companions too deeply into the Ystrad Valley. Returning to their original path would cost them at least 2 days of hard travel. Since we're this far, Fluter went on, we might as well cross Ystrad and follow along the hills, staying out of sight of the Horned King. We'll be only a few days from Cardathel, and if we keep a good pace, we should reach it just in time. Tarn agreed to the new plan. It would, he realized, be more difficult, but he judged Melangar could still carry the unfortunate Gurgi as long as the companions shared the burden of the weapons. Eilonwy, having forgotten she was not speaking to Tarn, again insisted on walking. A day's march brought them to the banks of the Ystrad. Tarn stole cautiously ahead, looking down the broad valley. He saw a moving dust cloud. When he hurried back and reported this to Fluter, the bard clapped him on the shoulder. We're ahead of them, he said. That is excellent news. I was afraid that we'd be much closer to us, and we'd have to wait for nightfall to cross Ystrad. We've saved half a day. Hurry now, and we'll be into the foothills of Eagle Mountains before sundown. With his precious harp held above his head, Fluter plunged into the river, and the others followed. Here the Ystrad ran shallow, scarcely above Eilonwy's waist, and the companions forded it with little difficulty. Nevertheless, they emerged cold and dripping, and the setting sun neither dried nor warmed them. Leaving the Ystrad behind, the companions climbed slopes steeper and rockier than any they had traveled before. Perhaps it was only his imagination, but the air of the land around Spiral Castle had seemed to Tarn heavy and oppressive. Approaching the Eagle Mountains, Tarn felt his burden lighten as he inhaled the dry, spicy scent of pine. He had planned to continue the march throughout most of the day, but Gurgi's condition had worsened, obliging Tarn to call a halt. Despite the herbs, Gurgi's leg was badly inflamed, and he shivered with fear. He looked thin and sad. The suggestion of crunchings and munchings could not rouse him. Even Melangar showed concern. As Gurgi lay with his eyes half closed, his parched lips tight against his teeth. The white mare nuzzled him delicately, whinnying and blowing out her breath
anxiously as if attempting to comfort him as best as she could. Tarn risked lighting a small fire. He and Fluter stretched Gurgi out beside it, while Iladwe held up the suffering creature's head and gave him a drink from the leather flask. Tarn and the bard moved a little away and spoke quietly between themselves. "I've done all I know," Tarn said. "If there's anything else, it lies beyond my skill." He shook his head sorrowfully. "He has failed badly today, and there is so little of him left, I believe I could pick him up with one hand." "Caer Dather was not far away," said Fluter, "but our friend, I fear, may not live to see it." That night, wolves howled in the darkness beyond the fire. All next day the wolves followed them, sometimes silently, sometimes barking as if in signal to one another. They remained almost out of bowshot, but Tarn caught sight of the lean gray shapes flickering in and out of the scurrying trees. "As long as they don't come any closer," he said to the bard, "we needn't worry about them." "Oh, they won't attack us," Fluter answered. "Not now, at any rate. They can be infuriating patient if they know someone's wounded." He turned an anxious glance toward Gurgi. "For them, it's just a matter of waiting."
Well, I must say you're a cheerful one,"
remarked Iladwe.
"You sound as if we'd had to look forward to who was being gobbled up."
"If they attack, we shall stand them off," Tarn said quietly. "Gurgi was willing to give up his life for us. I could do no less for him. Above all, we must not lose heart so close to the end of our journey." "A flam never loses heart," cried the bard. "Come, wolves, or what have you." Nevertheless, the uneasiness settled over the companions as the gray shapes continued traveling and trailing them. Melgar, docile and obedient until now, turned skittish. The golden mare horse tossed her head and rolled her eyes at every attempt to lead her. To make matters worse, Fluter declared their progress through the hills was too slow. "If we go any farther east," said the bard, "we'll run into some really high mountains. The condition we're in, we couldn't possibly climb them. But here we're practically walled in. Every path has led us round about. The cliffs there," he went on, pointing toward the towering mass of rock to his left, "are too rugged to get over. I had thought we'd find a pass before now. Well, that's the way of it. We can only keep on bearing north as much as possible."
"The wolves didn't seem to have any trouble finding their way,"
said Iladwe. "My dear girl," answered the bard with some indignation, "if I were able to run on 4 legs and sniff my dinner a mile away, I doubt I'd have any difficulties either." Iladwe giggled.
"I'd love to see you try," she said.
"We do have someone who can run on 4 legs," Tarn said suddenly. "Melgar, if anyone can find their way to Caer Dather, she can." The bard snapped his fingers. "That's it!" he cried. "Every horse knows its way home. It's worth trying, and we can't be worse off than we are now."
"For an assistant pig keeper," said Iladwe to Tarn, "you do come up with some interesting ideas now and then."
When the companions started off again, Tarn dropped the bridle and gave Melgar her head. With the half-conscious Gurgi bound to her saddle, the white horse trotted swiftly ahead at a determined gait. By mid-afternoon, Melgar discovered one pass which Fluter admitted he himself would have overlooked. As the day wore on, Melgar led them swiftly through rocky defiles to high ridges. It was all the companions could do to keep up with her. When she cantered to a long ravine, Tarn lost sight of her for a moment, and hurried forward in time to glimpse the mare as she turned sharply around an outcropping of white stone. Calling the bard and Iladwe to follow quickly, Tarn ran ahead. He stopped suddenly. To his left, on a high shelf of rock, crouched an enormous wolf with golden eyes and lolling red tongue. Before Tarn could draw his sword, the lean animal sprung.
And that is where we will end for tonight. Like I said, y'all, I appreciate you all watching these videos whenever you have time. Actually, yeah, we're just going to keep it like this. I do appreciate y'all. I love every single one of y'all. Thank you so very much. I will see you all tomorrow for Storytime with Chris. Bye-bye now.